Okay, today I thought I'd make a video showing some of the special tools that you can use when rebuilding a triple engine, a Triumph Trident or a BSA Rocket 3 engine. So these are some of the special tools that are available to help rebuilding that engine, make it just that little bit easier. So where are we going to start? Oh, let's start with this big beauty. This is a clutch hub locking tool. If you want to take the engine apart, then you dismantle the primary chain case, withdraw the clutch, and behind the clutch is the clutch hub that runs on the gearbox shaft. And that's held on by a big nut. And then you try and undo that nut, and all that happens is the gearbox shaft just turns. So you put this tool over the splines of the clutch hub, and then it will lock. This bar will hit the crankshaft and lock it, and so you put your socket on that nut and it will come off easy as pie. And also, of course, used in reverse for tightening the nut back up again when you put it back on. So it's a fantastic simple tool, the clutch hub locking tool. Great. Together with the clutch hub locking tool is a clutch hub removal tool. Having taken the nut off the little clutch hub, the hub itself is held on, taper fit, doesn't want to come off. You can't lever it off because you'll damage the casing behind it. So the clutch hub itself usefully is threaded on the inside, so you just screw this in and then tighten up this nut onto the end of the gearbox main shaft, and off comes the clutch hub. So again, really useful. Another removal tool. This is a tool for removing the pinion off the crankshaft on the timing side. There's a small pinion that drives all the sprockets for the camshafts, etc. Now the problem with that pinion is it's right up against the crankcases, so you can't get anything behind it to try and pull it off. If you use a normal three-legged puller to try and get behind it, you can't because the legs are too thick. So this is a special tool with quite thin little legs but very strong, and when it's fully open it's just big enough to slide over the top, the outside of the pinion, and then you screw this clever little collet up here, and that serves to squeeze the legs together behind the pinion, and then you screw this nut up onto the end of the crankshaft and it pulls the pinion off. I always refer to this as the James Bond tool because I think it looks a bit like the spaceship in You Only Live Twice. The baddest spaceship turns up and the front opens with these three big jaws, and it eats the goody spaceship and then closes back up again. So that's the James Bond You Only Live Twice tool for removing the crankshaft pinion. Quite expensive, about £25, but essential, and you can use it on BSAs, twins, Triumph twins, Norton Commandos, etc. Where do we go next? Piston ring clamps. Now you need special piston ring clamps really for a triple engine because it's got a 120 degree crankshaft. What that means is that the pistons are 120 degrees to each other, so one's up, one's halfway down, one's at the bottom, and they're all at different heights. A normal twin cylinder engine, often it's a 360 degree crank, so both pistons are next to each other. So you can put the pistons to top dead centre, slide the barrels down over the piston ring clamps and take them off. But this is a 120 degree angle engine, so when you slide the barrels down, you get it over the first piston, that's fine, but the third piston is right at the bottom. So you have to get the barrels almost down to the crankcases before they've covered the piston rings. And then you can't get the piston ring clamp out because there's not enough room under the barrels. So you have these special, very thin rings which are just thin enough, just thick enough rather, to go over the piston rings and no more. So it makes them thin enough to pull out. And they're also hinged because it's still a nightmare getting them out, and you can open them and then just pull them out in one. These have got a single hinge on them, but the even better ones, which they sell now, are the copies of the original NVT tool, Trident BSA tool, with two hinges, so they actually open out even further, even easier to get out. So that's what you want really. It's a piston ring clamp with two hinges, but they've got to be the special ones. Otherwise, you can put the barrels on fine, but you'll not then be able to pull the clamps out afterwards, the compressors. What we got next? Oh yeah, another extractor. We've got an extractor for the camshaft sprockets. So you want to get the camshaft off, then you've taken the nut off, left hand thread, and at least on one of them, and then you put this over the end of the camshaft to protect it, and put this on there, and then we put these through and screw these two bolts into the holes on the sprocket, and then again tighten up this central bolt which pushes on the camshaft and pulls the sprocket off. Simple, but again very effective. Where are we going next? Oh, another kind of extractor tool. This is a 1/2 inch bolt. What's a 1/2 inch bolt? Why is that a special tool? Well, this is for taking off the advance and retard unit on the exhaust camshaft if you still have points. So to get the advance and retard unit off, that's it's an interference fit on a taper on the exhaust camshaft. So what you do is you undo the bolt that holds the advance and retard in, which is a 7/16 bolt. But you'll find that the advance and retard unit is now locked on with that interference fit, so it won't come off. So then you screw this larger bolt, which is 1/2 inch, and you'll find that then screws inside the actual advance and retard unit itself, which is threaded. So it's a bit like screwing this into the clutch hub. This screws into a threaded section of the advance and retard unit, and then that will push up against the camshaft itself. Don't over tighten it, but get it quite tight, and then tap this, and that will break the seal, and then the advance and retard unit will simply fall off the chamfer. Okie then where are we going next? Oh, let's go to another locking tool. Clever little locking tool, this one. This is a primary chain locking tool, and what it does, it fits between the shock absorber sprocket and the engine sprocket on the primary chain, and by fitting in the teeth it locks the primary chain solid, so you can undo the shock absorber nut and you can undo the engine sprocket nut. Very clever. These are available only, not from normal dealers, but only from Andy Preece, and I'll put his contact details in the blurb underneath this video. They're available, I think, for all triples, so you can get them for Rocket 3s, T150s, T160s, and I think he's now started to make one for T160s with a triple X chain conversion, so you can get them for all triples, I think. Highly recommended, just makes life so much easier. Another locking tool. This is an old idler pinion from the timing gears. So what you do is you want to remove the nuts off the end of the camshaft sprockets, and you want to lock the engine. So all you do is idler pinion, and there's, say, the inlet sprocket, and you sit this in between the two and it locks them solid. And so then you can undo the camshaft nuts, no problem. So it just locks up the timing side if you want to undo or to tighten up the camshaft sprockets. What we got? This is a locking tool for the crankshaft, so that you can set the engine at exactly 38 degrees before top dead center, so you can set the timing static timing at 38 degrees before top dead centre. Obviously later on you're going to check it with a strobe when it's going, but this is good to be able to set it pretty close in the first place. So what you do is there's a plug on the front of triple engines on the timing side, and that plug, you take that plug out and then you screw this hold plug in its place. You set the engine to top dead centre on the timing side piston. Then you push this pin in through the hole and then it will touch the flywheel on the crankshaft. Rotate the engine backwards gently, keeping pressure on the end here, and there's a hole drilled, clever hole drilled in the flywheel, and when that hole lines up you keep pressure on here and suddenly poof, it will engage with that hole, and the engine is now set at exactly 38 degrees before top dead centre on the drive side piston, and you can set your timing pretty spot on with that. Later on obviously you're going to check it with the strobe when it's going. Don't forget to then pull this pin back out before trying to turn the engine over again. I do know people that have done that, left the pin in, I can't think who it might have been, and then tried to turn the engine over and wonder why it was locked solid. So don't forget to take the pin back out and then take this out and refit the blanking plug. Simple little tool here. This is for removing the inspection caps on the primary chain case, etc. So you've got those caps with a little groove in, so too big for a screwdriver. You try tapping around, you're going to make a mess of them straight away. So this fits, this little blade fits in the groove on the inspection cap, then spanner on this, off it comes, and to tighten it back up. So you can remove and replace those little inspection caps without damaging them. What else we got? This is a tool for protecting the oil seal on the points cover. So in the timing cover there's a separate little cavity for the points, and just inside there is a small little oil seal because you don't want oil getting into the points cavity. Now that oil seal fits over the exhaust camshaft. The problem is that when you put the timing case back on, it's very easy to damage that oil seal on the end of the camshaft before the oil seal is in place. So what you do is you screw this little tool quite cleverly into the end of the exhaust camshaft. Then when you put the timing cover on, the oil seal slides nicely over this little chamfered area till it's on the camshaft, not damaged. Then unscrew this and you've now got an oil seal fitted that's not damaged. I once fitted the timing case without using that tool, and sure enough I damaged the oil seal and it leaked. There's a photo coming up showing this in use, and for the eagle-eyed among you, it's not a photo of a triple engine. See if you can guess which engine it was. Then this little tool. This is a tool for trying to ensure that the little oil O-ring seal on the rocker box shaft, the rocker shafts, isn't damaged when you push the shaft back into the rocker box. So you've got a rocker box shaft, and about half an inch in from the end is a little oil seal that sits in a groove. The trouble is that when you tap that shaft in, what tends to happen is the rocker box itself decapitates the top of that oil seal because it's a really tight fit, and as the oil seal tries to squeeze in, instead of squeezing in, it's just cut off. The top's taken off by the actual rocker box itself. So what you do is, the idea is you put this on first on the shaft and then tap it in, and this squeezes the seal, and so that when the shaft goes in it doesn't damage the oil seal. To be honest, it doesn't work that well. It's better than not using it at all though. The best bet though is to actually chamfer where the rockers go into the rocker boxes, and that way it squeezes the oil seal as it goes in. So whilst you've got the rocker boxes off, it's worth trying to just put a little chamfer just where the rocker shafts go in on the drive side, so that when you do put them in, it doesn't damage that little oil seal. And last but not least, this is a tool for setting or indexing the gearbox, for making sure that the gearbox quadrant is in the right place, the teeth. So what you do is you put on the correct spigot, then that spigot slots into where the gear lever bush on the inner gearbox cover, and this goes into one of the this lines up directly with one of the holes in the edge of the gearbox cover, and then this little pointer will slot exactly in with the correct groove, the first groove on the gearbox quadrant, to make sure then when you slide the whole thing in, it's indexed correctly. Two things about this won't work with a Rocket 3, because where this locates the mounting bolt, because the gearbox is a slightly different shape on a Rocket 3, they don't have that hole, so you can't use this. Number two, this is a proper Triumph tool, and it comes with 3 different spigots. Now on Tridents there are actually 2 different size spigots. The medium sized spigot is used for the T150, and so you use that, and that will slot in the gearbox bush. But on a T160 that bush is smaller, so you have to use a smaller spigot to slot in. And people sell these on eBay, but they're not these proper Triumph ones, and they don't come with these 3 interchangeable spigots. They normally come with the medium spigot, which fits T150s and bomb bills and many other twins, because that's what 90% of they're used for. They often advertise that these fit T160s as well. They don't. They fit T150s, but if this hasn't got a removable spigot that can be interchanged with a smaller one, they won't fit T160s. Right, there we are. A little trip through some of the special tools that are available when rebuilding a triple engine.